Nancy Maldonado became the CEO of the Chicano Federation of San Diego in January 2019, which meant that she had about a year to prepare for the organization's COVID-19 response, without any clue that that's what she was preparing for, of course. Add to that the fact that she's also a single mom, and that makes for a wild ride. But if anyone could take on a challenge like this, it's Nancy.
I'm really passionate about systems change. It's really easy to get into the work and do what's always been done. And I pride myself on being a disruptor of that and challenging people to think differently, challenging people to even think differently about the words that we use, the way that we refer to people, the way that we talk about communities. And COVID's been a disruptor. And so this is a really good time to look at those changes and look at how we can come back differently.
This is the How She Moms podcast with Whitney Archibald. I'm a mother of 5 on a mission to help moms connect with your kids, manage your homes, and create your own unique version of motherhood. I curate ideas from different moms so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. Nancy and I go way back to middle school and high school. When I picture her then and now, she's all eyes. Her eyes are unforgettable. They just dance with passion and fun. So when we recently connected on Instagram, I was not surprised to see that she's now bringing that passion to both motherhood and to the Chicano community of San Diego. Since we hadn't spoken since high school, we had a lot of ground to cover, and I was so curious to find out how she discovered her passion for serving this community, what path she took to get there, and how she manages such an intense career and motherhood, especially with COVID in the mix. But if I had asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up back in high school, what were your plans?
Oh, I was 100% set on being an athletic trainer. That is what I was going to be. So then I went to college and that was my major. And then I got the opportunity to go volunteer at the Olympics as an athletic trainer.
Awesome.
And I hated it. Came back and was like, okay, let me rethink this.
I mean, that's the pinnacle of training. So if you don't like it there, you're not going to like it anywhere, right?
Right. And that's pretty much what I thought. So yeah. Then I came back and I had to rethink really what I wanted to do. And I still wanted to be, something like in physical fitness and wellness. So I did end up going, my undergrad is in kinesiology and then my master's in exercise physiology.
Interesting. Huh. I never knew that. Okay. So, wow, you've come a long way since there. So lead me through your career path then.
So then it was right out of grad school. I started my own business where I was consulting with companies on how to start their wellness and fitness programs. And I did that for a number of years and did really well, was really successful. And then I had the great idea to go back to school to get my PhD. And then, so that's how I ended up in San Diego. And, while doing my PhD, I was working for a nonprofit for the Research Foundation. And I never left. Yeah.
Okay. It's so fascinating. We think that you choose early and then you stick with it, but I know barely anybody who did that. We don't know ourselves well enough to have any clue what we want to do.
Isn't it wild that we expect teenagers, really, right? 18-year-olds to decide what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And it's a really interesting concept and so much pressure that we put on people.
Yeah, really is. Okay, so it sounded like you started volunteering early. When did you know that you had a passion for helping your community? I'm sure it didn't just start in San Diego.
No, I've always done volunteer work and always been really interested in working kind of in under-resourced communities. And so it was part of what I did throughout my entire education, but specifically for my master's thesis, I worked on a project that really caught my attention. So I was working with a residential high school, and it was all students who were recovering from substance abuse, and they didn't have any athletic program or any even physical activity program at their school. And so I helped to develop that. I applied for grants, to get them the funding, kind of built that program from the ground up. And it was really fun work for me. It was a lot of work, but it was really rewarding work. And so that kind of got me thinking along the lines of, and then of course I went on and started my own business, but there was always a part of me that thought, gosh, there's more to this. There's a different space where I need to be that really drives like my passion. And so interestingly enough, I ended up working at a different nonprofit that was more health and wellness focused, but there was always something missing there, right? And I always thought, gosh, if I want to talk to people about health and wellness, but if their basic needs aren't met, this is going to fall on deaf ears, because understandably so, they're, paying rent and making sure their family has food to eat. That's the number one priority. They don't care about walking 30 minutes a day, right?
Right.
And so that really kind of got me thinking along the lines of we have to look at this work differently, and we have to look at people differently if we really want to make an impact and really change the systems and the structures that are at play here.
Awesome. Okay. So if you were to just list your current passions, what are some of the things that you're passionate about right now?
So I am really passionate about systems change, right? And I think that it's really easy to get into the work and do what's always been done. And I pride myself on being a disruptor of that and challenging people to think differently, challenging people to even think differently about the words that we use, the way that we refer to people, the way that we talk about communities, and start there. And then let's really look at how we've been doing things and how we can do them differently, and what is the outcome that we want, and how do we get there. And it's not by doing what we've been doing, because quote unquote normal hasn't been working for everybody. So how do we disrupt that? How do we change that and be okay with it? Because it's uncomfortable, not just for people that are involved, but for everyone who's really invested in status quo. Change is really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right?
Yeah, that's what makes change.
And during such a perfect time, right? I mean, I wouldn't say like COVID is a perfect time, but COVID's been a disruptor.
Yeah.
And so this is a really good time to look at those changes and look at how we can come back differently.
That's amazing. So I know it was before COVID, but when did you become the CEO?
It's been a little over 2 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you just kind of figured out what you were doing when all this hit, right?
I don't even know if I know what I'm doing yet.
Yeah.
Right? I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah, okay. So as things start shutting down, what are you thinking?
Well, it's interesting because, the stay-at-home order goes in place and everybody goes home. And I gathered my team and really just had an honest conversation with them about who do we want to be, right? Who do we want to be in this moment?
Yeah.
And what is our mission? And everybody collectively said, we need to act. This is the time where our community needs us most. Almost like this is our moment, right? Yeah. This is what we were meant to do. This is why we're here. This is why we exist. So my team has never worked from home, other than the initial 2 weeks when everybody, went into the stay-at-home order. Uh-huh. We came back to the office and we've never left. We never worked remotely. And I'd say it was about, within the first 2 weeks that we mobilized our first community-wide distribution, where we were distributing food, diapers, gift cards, really just making sure that we were meeting people's immediate needs. And we didn't slow down since. So hats off to my team, because they were the ones that really made the decision of not wanting to take a step back.
Awesome. Okay, so can you walk me through some of your major initiatives?
Yes, so we do affordable housing. So we own, 10 buildings throughout the county. So we have affordable housing. We have subsidized childcare. We have a few different programs that help people with the cost of childcare because, as we know, childcare is expensive. Yeah. So it can be really prohibitive to people who want to work or go to school. So that's an area that we have a number of different programs in, is helping people secure safe, affordable, or no-cost childcare. We have a childhood nutrition program where we're feeding about 7,500 children a month. We have a early childhood education programs, so a couple of different programs where we're really involved in early childhood education. We also have a workforce and business development program where we teach women how to start their own business and then help to keep it open. And then we have a number of civic engagement programs where we're really mobilizing the community and getting them engaged. And then obviously COVID, we have a lot of COVID response and a lot of COVID programming. And then just different opportunities that come up to partner on any of the initiatives that we feel are going to help the families that we serve.
Yeah, that's great. And I love how some of those are self-perpetuating, like the starting your own business, how you're helping people go into childcare, which then helps you meet the childcare needs. That's genius. I love that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm really big on, right? Is making sure that we're really making an impact and helping people to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And if they're not better off for having been in one of our programs, if they're not in a better position, then we haven't done our job.
Yeah, I was reading the website and just getting chills. I was like, yes, that works too. That's amazing. I just love it. I love it. So I'm excited to promote the organization too. And of course, I'll give people a place to donate and everything like that too, because it's just such a great organization.
Thank you. Yes, it is a great organization. And long before I got here, right? Because it's 52 years old. So yeah. I'm a very small piece of this legacy.
But what an amazing organization to attach yourself to. How did you know this was the job for you?
You know, it's interesting. Of course, somebody that I knew that the former CEO and said, "Oh, you'd be a great fit. You should go here," right? Kind of thing. Right. And I wasn't really looking to make a change, but it just felt right.
Yeah.
And then I certainly didn't have any intention of becoming the CEO, but about a little over a year after being here, because I came in as a senior director, the CEO left. So then I was interim. And again, kind of just thinking like, I have no intention of being the CEO, but really then looking at, I am the right leader at the right time. And maybe that won't be the case for, whatever. But at this moment, it felt like I was the right leader for that organization, for this organization at the time.
And then, boy, what a moment it turned out to be. Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how motherhood factors into all this. So I would love to know, how have you taught him the value and importance of service?
I really think it's just been by example.
Yeah.
He has literally grown up going to volunteer events with me, participating in the community to the point where, here at Chicano Federation, we call him our number one volunteer because he's at everything and he's participating, right? He's not kind of that kid that's sitting back, like playing on the phone. He is very active, and I don't think he knows any different, right? Like he's never known a life without service. But beyond that, and I don't know if it's because of it, but he's just really also a really empathetic person, and that he understands that it's not just, here we are, doing a volunteer event, but that we're part of something bigger, and that this is each of our responsibility as people to give back and to do more. And I think he gets that. So that's really cool to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. How have you been able to balance your career and your motherhood?
Yeah, it's been tough, right? During COVID, for everybody. But for me, having to be so responsive during COVID and not having that ability to take the step back, right? And he was home. So a lot of the times it was just, he was coming along with me. He spends a lot of time at my office because if I don't have someone, that can take care of him, and especially during COVID too, because you didn't want different people coming in and out of your house. So a lot of the times he was coming to the office with me. Luckily, his school has been back this entire time.
Good. Oh, that's so good.
I can't imagine how I would have been able to manage had his school not reopened last fall. So I've been really, really lucky in that sense. But it's been tough. And I think one of the things that COVID, for me personally, has kind of reshifted the way that I think about even the work, right, and the role that my job plays. Because prior to COVID, a big part of what I did was going out to events, and I was a lot of evening events, maybe like 4 or 5 times a week. And I've been home with him every single night for this past, over a year, and that is completely different from the lifestyle that I had before. And so it has really forced me to reevaluate kind of the importance of that, and how meaningful it has been to be there every night with him. Actually, a friend of mine said this to me, and it has stuck with me, is that, anybody can be the CEO of this organization, but no one else can be his mom.
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
so really thinking about like what that means to me, and how that will change what I do moving forward.
Yeah. I think that's been the case for all of us. Even though I am pretty much a stay-at-home mom, I do this podcast on the side as well. But I wasn't at home with my kids every evening because I was like driving them to different things, and I was a crazy person every afternoon. And this time being able to like actually be more present and spend time all together in the evenings and stuff has really made us cut down on our activities for one. And yeah, just pretty much the same as you, just really, like, what actually do we want to add back in when we're starting to add back in, when you can, when else have we ever had the opportunity to have a blank slate?
Right. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it's now that things are reopening, and kind of getting back to like, it's interesting because I've received invitations to go to evening events. And right now, I just can't will myself to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm like, wait, I would miss putting him to bed. And I've been doing that. And I don't want to stop. I don't want that to stop.
Yeah. And there are going to be times that it's more important than others, but that we've all experienced that, like, the world keeps going if we're not there every minute. So yeah, so we get to choose. I think we've always been able to choose, but for some reason we just didn't realize how many choices we had, right?
Right. And everything felt necessary.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I have to go to that. I have to do that. And this year has shown us, like, actually, I guess I didn't.
Yeah. I know. I always feel a little awkward when I point out the positives because there have been so many negatives, obviously, and the biggest one being loss of life, of course. But I really think you hit it on the head when you talked about disruption. I love thinking about, COVID as a great disruptor, and we would be foolish to return to what we were doing before when we have this. Again, I don't want to say opportunity because it just seems wrong to call COVID an opportunity, but in some ways it really is.
Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity to reevaluate what's really important.
Yeah. In the second half of our conversation, we delved into this a little deeper and talked about two topics I'm researching heavily right now: mommy wars and guilt. In fact, if you'd like to talk to me about either of these topics, let me know. Anyway, I next asked Nancy if she felt judgment or pressure from other moms.
Well, yes, I did. And part of the reason is that when I had my son, I sold my business to stay home with him for 3 years. So I don't know how much of that pressure was kind of came from the outside or how much was self-inflicted, but I watched kind of, and I was I had a pretty successful business and I was doing well, and I sold that to stay home. And so as I was watching kind of my peers, their trajectory, in their careers, and they were continuing to accomplish all these things, I had to kind of just go off the grid and stop paying attention to that because of the pressure that I felt in, like, what am I doing? I'm falling behind. I need to, get back out there. And so I just really kind of removed everything in terms of, like, social media or like news or keeping up with people's careers. And in that moment, I also tended to, my circle was stay-at-home moms, right? Because that's who was around.
Right.
But also I felt like that's who understood me during that time. And interestingly enough, I would say that probably since kind of going back to work and that now my circle is working moms.
Yeah.
And not so much stay-at-home moms. So
That's interesting to experience both sides.
yes. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I really felt the pressure or kind of the conflict from outside. I think a lot of it was internal, that I was putting pressure on my. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how did you make that decision in the first place?
Well, first of all, so I was a single mom, and there was no way that I felt comfortable kind of leaving him with somebody that I didn't, and I don't have family in San Diego. And so it was kind of, for me, it was at the point of like making the decision, do I keep him with a nanny or a babysitter and let someone else essentially like raise my child? And I was in a very, very fortunate and privileged position to where I could sell my business and financially was able to do that. And so I recognize that that's not where a lot of people are, or an option for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it was for me. And so I made that decision. And for 3 years, I stayed home with him. Yeah. And it's so fun because when I think of like our bond now and just how everything that kind of people call him is my little mini me. He's like my little twin. And I think about how special and formative those years were, and that I was so fortunate to be able to do that. So yeah, no regrets at all. I mean, there were so many steps along the way where I needed advice from other quote unquote types of moms, or, moms that were doing different things, especially when I went back to work. Then I needed the support and help of working moms and like, how do I do this? How do I navigate this? And I can't tell you how many times I was like racing home from work, trying to get him from preschool, and I hit traffic, right? And I would have to just get on the phone and start calling the moms that I knew, whether working moms or stay-at-home moms, saying like, who can help me?
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, we need each other. We cannot be infighting. We have to end this. Yeah.
And it's so tough. It's tough for everybody, regardless of whether you're working or staying at home. So the more support, the more that we can support each other, the better.
Yeah. And I really feel like a lot of any of that comes from just our own insecurities and and questioning our own values.
Right. And then I think also from the flip side, understanding that someone else's choice has nothing to do with you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I got that a lot too. And that people would defend their choice when I tell them what decision I made. And I was thinking to myself, but this has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, that is such a good point.
Absolutely. And, I can't not also mention single moms, right? Yeah. Because of just how hard it is in general, but then like watching single mothers who are working and trying to do that. I mean, luckily I didn't have to work in that, in that period, but I know so many moms that did and had to do it on their own. And, my hat will always go off to them because I can't imagine how challenging and difficult that is, right? Of everything that moms deal with, but then to deal with it on your own.
Yeah.
We always have to give them special credit.
Absolutely. Special credit and special support. All the village.
Yes.
Gather around.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always say that if I just, if money wasn't an issue and I could just start my own nonprofit, it would be a nonprofit to support single moms and give them the resources and the support and just everything that they need, right? But maybe one day.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Actually, I would love to know a little bit more about that, the in-home initiatives that you have. And maybe those have had to be discontinued a little bit during COVID, or have you still been able to do those?
We're back now to being able to do them. We did them remotely, right? We did them virtually, which didn't have the same effect because, again, so for example, one of our programs is where we go into families' homes and teach the parents, usually it's one parent, how to be their child's first teacher, right? And so we're teaching them all of those things like how many words your child should be speaking at the age of 3, what are signs of developmental delays, those kinds of things. So, and it's a really wonderful program. It's one of my favorites that we do, but virtually, you don't get that same connection. So we've still done them, but I'm really grateful now that we're able to do them back in person, because it's a different feeling.
Oh, I that was one of my favorite things to see. I can't say enough about how excited I am about what the work you're doing. It's so great. Okay, well, so one last thing. Do you struggle with mom guilt? And if so, how do you get past it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think I always have, right? I mean, even just in the decision to go back to work
Yeah.
and not be there every day, right? And obviously I didn't go back to work until he started preschool. But again, he started preschool at 3, right? I could have waited until 4 or 5.
Right,
So
right.
there was guilt there. Absolutely. And then there's guilt, for example, like when I'm not home. Like there were days before COVID where I would leave the house before he woke up, and I would get home when he was already in bed. And that felt awful. And I think part of the way that I have justified it or been able to work through it is because of the work that I do.
Yeah.
Right. And he knows that. And so I always encourage my staff and my team who works for me, like, bring your child to work if you ever get the opportunity. Let them see what you are doing, and that the reason that you're not with them is because you're doing something else. You're giving back in a way, you know what I mean? And you're not just not with them.
Yeah.
And I've always believed that. And so I think him being able to see what it is that I do makes me feel a little less guilty about that he knows when I'm not with him, it's because I'm doing something that's meaningful. And hopefully in some way helping to make the world just a little bit of a better place.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. And it's so remarkable how universal mom guilt is, because it's not relegated to working moms or stay-at-home moms. I mean, no matter what, we all feel like we could be doing more. But the fact of the matter is, we have to prioritize. You can't do everything, or you'll do everything poorly. So,
Right. No, that's something that I've always said, right? Because I get invited to speak to a lot of girls, like young girls and like a lot of groups. And I always say that we have to stop sending the message that you can do everything. Because what that does is it sets you up to feel like a failure,
yeah.
because something has got to give, right? You're not going to be the perfect wife and the perfect mom and the perfect CEO and the perfect this and the perfect that. Like, something has got to give. And if we keep sending that message, then eventually people feel like, oh, okay, I'm not doing enough. And that's where, again, the balance gets completely out of whack, because you're just running yourself ragged. And so you're right. You can't do everything perfectly. And that priorities change, right? And one day this could be important to me, and the next day it's just not.
Well, and nothing changes as quickly as motherhood itself, because kids are not staying in one place. They are growing so fast.
He's changing and turning into his own little person, and he has his interests and things that he wants to do and things that he doesn't want to do.
Yeah, for sure.
And so regardless of who I want him to be, he's going to be who he's meant to be. And I have to be able to adjust to that as well.
Yeah, which is really the exciting, exhilarating thing about motherhood, is that we're just kind of taking care of these little people. We're not making them into anything. How stunning is it to witness a person from birth through all the stages? Like, it's such a privilege to even just stand back and witness it all. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And I always reflect so much on like the nature versus nurture, right? Yeah. Like, there's some things that no matter how hard I tried, he is his own person, and he has his own thoughts and his own ideas and the way he's going to do things. And it's fascinating to me to think about, like, gosh, how much of that was he already born with? And I literally had no control over.
So much. And it's interesting because that goes both ways, because sometimes it's like, well, then why even try? Like, what am I even doing? But it helps you, like, kind of redefine your role as more of like a coach or a guide or, a teacher rather than an architect, Yes,
100%. And I think that there's things that we can nurture and help them to build more of, right? And help them to see, like, why these things are important. But yeah, the foundation is already there, which is really incredible.
Well, and it kind of goes back to what we started talking about, is how when we're young and trying to figure ourselves out, well, that's another privilege we have as moms, because we've known these people this whole time, and we can help guide them and help them go back to who they are at their core, those talents that they have that they might be completely blind to.
Absolutely. And I always reflect on that quote. I'm sure you probably heard it, is like, be the person you needed when you were younger. Right.
Yeah.
And I always think about that. Like, what did I need when I was younger? Like, oh, how can I be that for him? And like learn, right? And keep evolving and growing and keep getting better. And so I think about that a lot. Like, what would I have needed in that moment? And how can I be that for him?
I think if anything could sum up Nancy's passions, this is it. She's passionate about providing what people need most at any given moment, from her son to her organization to her community. You can learn more about the Chicano Federation of San Diego and also donate to this wonderful organization at chicanofederation.org. Thank you for listening to the How She Moms podcast. If you like it, tell a friend. The bigger the community, the more ideas. There are lots of ways you can add your ideas to the How She Moms community. We have a Facebook group where we share ideas about upcoming topics and help each other solve problems we're facing in motherhood. You can also follow How She Moms on Instagram for quick tips and ideas. And you can go to howshemoms.com, where you'll find transcripts of episodes and lots of other great resources. Special thanks to my mom, Susan Singley, for recording my theme music. She played this song all the time when I was growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.